Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Deep Focus show. I'm Aiden,
I'm Clay.
Max.
and we are continuing the 1950s dive, exploration, whatever, with a movie directed by Alexander McKendrick called Sweet Smell of Success, which is I guess you could call it a film noir about the shady practices of the journalism industry in the 50s, I guess is the best way to describe it. Any of you guys have any thoughts you want to get out before we go into our bigger reviews?
It's a very film noir-y, extremely film noir-y. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've always like loved noir, so I was open to it. Yeah, I love. I mean, we'll get into it later, but I love the dialogue in this movie so much. It's incredible.
You're a cookie full of arsenic. My
Yeah.
favorite line.
Yeah,
Classic. You're dead. Get yourself buried. It's too
yeah,
many good lines.
it's incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can get into our reviews of the film.
I'll start. The movie stars Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis, Susan Harrison, Martin Milner. What it is about? What is it about? Columnist J.J. Hunsaker, played by Lancaster, is not too keen on his sister's boyfriend, which are Susan Hunsaker, played by Susan Harrison, and Steve Dallas, played by Martin Milner. So he hires Sidney Falco, played by Curtis, to destroy their relationship. He gives him an ultimatum to help his job. It took me a while to catch on to the plot, but I really enjoyed the dialogue here. It was very engaging. I thought sometimes it was very witty. And in the third act, it kind of comes together like a bow. So that confusion didn't really last long. But Sydney will do anything to get back in the game, including whoring out his girlfriend, which I thought was like wild. That's a wild scene. But that's only the beginning. There's one scene where one of the characters tells Sydney that he has not a drop of respect for anyone alive, and I think that's pretty much the gist of his character. But I think Hunsaker is the real villain here. He's one of the most calmly malevolent villains that I've ever seen put to screen lately. I think this has a phenomenal score. It sounds very smooth and devious, but also jazzy and hectic. And the cinematography is pretty stellar. The movie is just Sweet Smell of Success is like 90 straight minutes of people manipulating each other and people going back and forth in a cat and mouse kind of deal. These people are just being about as cruel as possible without causing any physical harm. Although there is one sequence at the end where you think somebody's going to be harmed, and well, someone pretty much is. Spoiler, but the dialogue is very theatrical. It's almost like a stage production, and apparently they made a musical out of this in the early 2000s. I think that would have been interesting. But in the third act, I really like how all the themes come together. Although this movie can be a little bit mean-spirited at times, I still think it's a fun watch. I'm going 4.5 stars for it.
Yeah, all right. Well, this was the second time I'd seen this actually, but it had been a few years. The first time I watched this, I do think I was like preoccupied or something because I came away with like kind of like a vague impression of that was good. But I mean, it is like a very labyrinthine plot. Like that is kind of a film noir kind of thing. But this time, I just really locked into it, and it's almost like it's like reading a book, like reading like some like James Joyce book or something, like Ulysses, where people are saying all this crazy bullshit, but you can figure out what's at the heart of it, and what everybody's like really getting at. And yeah, if you don't understand, some of like the machinations people are doing in the moment, it'll come into focus later in the story, and I think a lot of that is intentional too, that you're supposed to be kind of trying to put all this behavior together and figure out what it means and like what people's motives are and stuff. I mean, it's just a great movie all around, and I mean, it's just this assemblage of super talented people. I mean, it's Alexander McKendrick, who directed this, was like known primarily for like those like Ealing comedies, with like Alec Guinness, like Lady Killers and Man in the White Suit, and obviously Elmer Bernstein doing the music. He's awesome. James Wong Howe is like, one of the great classic cinematographers. and it's written by both of them. I mean, Ernest Lemon is a great screenwriter. Wrote North by Northwest, co-wrote West Side Story. Clifford Odets was like more known as a playwright, but he was like a very well respected playwright. And I mean, you kind of got Tony Curtis in this too, kind of playing against type. He was generally cast as much more kind of likable people. In this, he's really awful, and he does it really well. Like, I think it's a unique movie in the sense that I kind of thought Susie was kind of the protagonist of the movie, or like at least kind of the audience surrogate character, but you don't really like know that for a long time. It's just like these two guys are like so ambitious and hurting all these people to try to progress themselves and get more power, but like he's the only one ultimately who like ends up changing and figuring anything out. So that's kind of interesting. Burt Lancaster is like incredible in this. He's really scary. I've heard that he was actually like scary just in general, just like on the set too, just like as a guy, he was very intense. But he brings a lot of like little kind of flourishes of behavior to it that are like very strange and creepy. And yeah, the best thing about this movie is the dialogue. I wrote down my top five lines. Yeah, the one you said, Aiden, I did to take a bite out of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic. That's on there. But also the cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river. If you're funny, I'm a pretzel. That's fish 4 days old. I won't buy it. And stop tinkering, pal. That horseradish won't jump a fence. Are my top five lines for this movie. So yeah, I mean, you really got nothing to complain about. It's beautifully acted, beautifully written, beautifully scored, really well directed, really memorable, amazing script. I mean, I see no reason not to give it 5 stars. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, for me, my second time seeing it, and I think the kind of structure of the plot was kind of more clear to me this time around. I agree, it's very dense, and like you have to really like pay attention to what the characters are like trying to get done and everyone's motivation. But yeah, no, I just think it's one of the most just like dark and kind of, morally repulsive movies of the classic Hollywood era. I mean, Clay kind of touched on it, the scene where he like pimps out his girlfriend to the columnist. It's just like disturbing. It's like it's so like skeezy, and his whole character, Falco, is like I think one of the best scenes with him is when he's talking about Hunsecker's trying to get him to like plant weed on his on Dallas to get him arrested, and he was like, not even for a column would I do that. And then he's like, and then he realizes what he just said and is like, oh, maybe I would. Like he kind of realizes as the story goes how much of like a snake he is, who's willing to do anything for the sweet smell of success. It's very well done in that respect. And just but Hunsaker is just like terrifying. Like you fully buy that he would be this like just like maniacal Machiavellian columnist who would be able to destroy anyone just by putting it in his column. The way he concocts this evil plan to like destroy Dallas by having one of his like rival columns plant all these stories by tricking them into thinking it's a way to get back at him. Like he's just like this like evil genius of clout and fame and gossip, and it's such a like dark portrait of where America was at that time, I guess. Like I feel like you really see that with a lot of these movies is this kind of directors coming to terms with like celebrity fame, mass media, like you have these movies about the dangers of television and the dangers of journalism and of kind of people doing anything to get ahead. And I certainly think this was a big influence on a lot of recent films in that respect. And yeah, just the technical stuff is incredible, of course. Like the score is great. It's Elmer Bernstein, I think. And the cinematography is by James Wong Howe. That's awesome. It looks very good. You've got all those like moody looking shadows, and the film noir elements are very well handled. And like the way it works, like where it right before Dallas gets beat up by the police, they don't show it and they just cut to like the drummer like hitting all the cymbals, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what's going down. without having to like show it and be very, graphic and stuff. The film does a good job of being kind of like punchy. It's shocking how much stuff they were able to get away with for like the Hays Code and the censorship standards you had back then, especially in terms of like the amount of sex and like kind of just dark subject matter, kind of police corruption, all that stuff. It's a very kind of underhanded movie. But yeah, I'd go 5 stars for it. Like, the script is pretty much perfect. Like, I think you could study this script and learn a lot because I do think if it wasn't well written, it would kind of fall apart. You'd have all of these story threads that would kind of just like spin their wheels. But it does a good job communicating the story, so you kind of get what's going on. It opens partway through the narrative, so you get that burst of exposition at the beginning that kind of helps you out there. So yeah, just a very phenomenally well done movie, and I think it wasn't I don't think it was nominated for many like Oscars or anything like that. Like it wasn't a big awards movie at the time, but I think of the movies from 1957, which are all super acclaimed. Like this is certainly one of the top tier, like it's with like 12 Angry Men and Paths of Glory and movies like that really defined that year. I think this is another very strong contender there. So yeah, very big fan of this one. So yeah.
Amazon told me it was a BAFTA nominee, apparently.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that could BAFTA's nominated more movies, so they nominated like 20. Oscars only put up like 5 a year. They were too choosy.
Um, I think this might be my second or third favorite of this 50 series that we've done so far.
Nice.
Either behind Rear Window or behind the Western that we saw, which
Rio Bravo.
Rio Bravo, yeah.
Nice. Two great movies, and I think this one's a great one as well. But yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, so thank you all very much for watching this. I just realized we haven't spun the wheel, so we don't know what's the next one yet, but we'll do that soon, and we'll inform you in the comments or descriptions what it ends up being. So yeah, thank you again for watching, and yeah, stay tuned for our next episode.
Bye.